When people see headlines calling me the woman who turned code into gold, they imagine perfection. $1 billion sale magazine covers, and a husband whose smile could sell dreams. But they don't know that the same success story nearly became my obituary. I'm Margaret Cooper, 36, and this is how my perfect life cracked open one hairline fracture at a time. I grew up in Seattle, a city that always smelled like rain and ambition. My parents were both high school teachers, kind, practical, and quietly proud of their two daughters. But between Vanessa and me, I was the quiet one, the girl with ink on her fingers and a permanent frown of concentration. Vanessa, 3 years younger, was born with sunshine in her eyes. She walked into a room and gravity shifted toward her. When I came home with straight A's, Mom smiled. When Vanessa came home with a trophy from a beauty pageant, they called the neighbors to celebrate. I told myself it didn't matter that I preferred the satisfaction of solving an algorithm to the fleeting applause of an audience. But sometimes late at night, when I heard my parents laughing with her in the living room, I'd press my hands over my ears and whisper, "Focus, Margaret. Focus on what lasts." That mantra built my life. At 12, I met the person who saw me for what I could become, Mrs. Harlow, my computer science teacher. She stayed after class one afternoon while I debugged an impossible program. When I finally cracked it, she leaned over my shoulder and whispered, "Your mind works differently, Margaret. Don't ever apologize for that." That single sentence became my compass. College was survival. I studied computer science at the University of Washington while juggling 3 jobs: barista at dawn, library clerk. By afternoon, tech support. By night, my world shrank to coffee code and exhaustion. Vanessa, meanwhile, floated through college on charm and half scholarships, posting glossy photos of beach parties while I counted tips to pay rent. But I didn't envy her, not then. I believed that struggle meant purpose. By 23, I was building something I called NeuroSync, an artificial intelligence system that could read emotion through digital behavior, text, voice, tone. I wanted to prove that empathy could exist in code. I poured myself into it like a scientist mixing her own blood into an experiment. Investors didn't care. They looked at me, a young woman in thrift store suits, and saw risk. Impressive demo, they'd say, but we'll pass. I lost count of the times I left pitch meetings and sat in my old Honda Civic crying behind the wheel, wondering if maybe Vanessa was right. Maybe charisma mattered more than competence. Then, one spring morning, everything changed. NeuroSync's algorithm detected early depression symptoms in a social media beta test group. A small miracle proof my creation could save lives. Suddenly, the same investors who had ignored me were sending invitations. Within 18 months, my staff grew from 3 to 100. Our valuation skyrocketed to $50 million. I moved into a minimalist glass office overlooking the bay, an empire made from sleepless nights, and code written between shifts at a coffee shop. That's when Derek Hamilton appeared. The first time I saw him, he was leaning casually against a conference table in San Francisco, laughing with a group of venture capitalists. His charm wasn't loud. It was deliberate, precise, like a song played on the right frequency. After my presentation, he approached me with a smile that disarmed and evaluated all at once. "You make empathy sound like math," he said. I smiled back. "Maybe math was empathy all along. You just needed the right formula." He laughed, memorizing the line, "Dinner, I'd like to hear the rest of your theory." He made me feel seen in a way I didn't know I needed. For once, someone wasn't talking down to me or trying to claim credit for my work. I mistook his attention for respect. I mistook his fascination for love. Vanessa called me after she saw our photos online. "He's gorgeous, Prissy." Finally, someone who matches your brain with beauty. I laughed, but her voice had a strange edge, a tone I couldn't name. Then curiosity wrapped in envy. 8 months later, Derek and I married on a cliffside overlooking the Pacific. A small ceremony, elegant and private. Vanessa stood beside me as maid of honor, her tears glistening as she hugged me. "You deserve this," she whispered. "All of it." For a second, her grip felt too tight. I told myself it was love. When I threw the bouquet, she didn't even reach for it. She just watched me, that same assessing look Derek had used the first time we met. The years that followed blurred into wealth interviews and expansion. Tech Global's acquisition offer $1 billion arrived on a rainy Tuesday. I sat in my office reading the number until it stopped feeling real. $1 billion. From coffee-stained notebooks to a global company. I thought I had won. We celebrated that night. Derek opened the champagne. Vanessa flew in from Los Angeles, all smiles and sequins. To my genius sister, she said, raising her glass. When our flutes clinked, I caught something strange, a flash of recognition between her and Derek. A silent exchange. A glance that felt private. It was brief gone before I could question it, but something inside me shifted a hairline crack in the glass of my perfect life. I shook it off, told myself I was imagining things. After all, they were family now. What harm could come from that? The following week, Derek booked us a suite at the Ritz-Carlton. He said I deserved rest. But even in the candlelight of our celebration dinner, there was a tension I couldn't explain. He reached across the table, taking my hand. You're brilliant, Margaret. The way you think it's rare. But brilliance needs balance. Let me help shoulder things. You shouldn't have to run everything alone. It sounded caring. It sounded like love. But something in his tone, too smooth, too rehearsed, made my stomach tighten. I pulled my hand back, gently smiling. I built it alone. I can handle the weight. For the first time, his eyes flickered with something colder than charm calculation. Then, as quickly as it appeared, it vanished. He laughed, pouring more champagne. That night, lying beside him, I watched the ocean lights shimmer beyond the window. I thought about Vanessa's words, about the look they'd shared, about the way my success suddenly felt like standing on a glass bridge, beautiful, breathtaking, and maybe already cracking underfoot. I didn't know it then, but beneath that glittering surface, two people I loved most were already planning how to make me disappear. If I had known that the first time Derek Hamilton said my name, he was already rehearsing how to sign it on my will, I would have walked away from that conference floor. But in the glow of admiration, we don't see predators, we see partners. Derek made falling in love feel like scaling a mountain with someone who'd already mapped the route. He appeared everywhere I went. AI panels, fundraisers, tech expos, always with that calm curiosity that made me feel like the most interesting woman in the room. He had the kind of confidence that came from old money and the illusion of safety. When he listened, he didn't interrupt. When he spoke, it was always with purpose. You built empathy into a machine, he said once over dinner. But I think you've forgotten to leave some for yourself. At the time, I mistook manipulation for insight. He told me stories about his childhood on the East Coast, his late father's business empire, and the family expectations he'd fled. He understood pressure, he said. Responsibility. Legacy. I wanted to believe him, wanted someone who understood the loneliness of ambition. Vanessa adored him instantly. She came up to San Francisco for a weekend visit and spent 2 hours getting ready before dinner, fluttering in with her perfume cloud and effortless charm. Derek Hamilton, she gasped dramatically when he entered the restaurant. The man who finally tamed my sister's laptop heart. He laughed, pulling out her chair with perfect manners. She's the one who tamed me, actually. The waiter poured wine, and for 2 hours, the three of us talked like a family in the making. Yet every time I looked away, I could feel Vanessa's eyes on him, calculating, appraising. Not with desire exactly, but curiosity. The way someone studies an opportunity. That night, as we hugged goodbye outside the restaurant, Vanessa kissed my cheek and whispered, "He's perfect, Prissy. Don't mess it up." Her tone was affectionate, but something in her voice, it wasn't advice. It was a warning. Our relationship accelerated like a rocket. Derek became a fixture in my life. Meeting after meeting, trip after trip, weaving himself into my schedule until I couldn't remember the last time I made a decision without consulting him. He sent me flowers when I landed investment deals. He remembered small details, my coffee order, the way I twisted my hair when I was thinking the exact phrases I used in board meetings. Every empire needs an ally, he'd say, brushing my hair off my shoulder. Let me be yours. And he was until he wasn't. The first time he mentioned business, we were sitting on the terrace of his penthouse, the city skyline spread like circuitry around us. "You've built something extraordinary," he said softly. "But Neurosync can't depend on one person forever. Investors like stability. Maybe we should consider a COO. He said we, not you. When I hesitated, he smiled that patient smile again. "You don't have to decide now. I just hate seeing you exhausted." It sounded protective, not possessive. That was Derek's gift, every manipulation disguised as concern. When he proposed, he did it with flawless timing, right after a keynote speech where I'd been hailed as the woman reshaping human connection. The applause was still echoing in my head when he got down on one knee backstage ring box, glinting under the spotlight. I said yes before the rational part of my brain could even process it. Vanessa called that night, squealing so loudly my assistant thought something was wrong. "I'm going to be your maid of honor, right?" Of course I laughed. She paused. "You sound hesitant." "Just tired." "Well, don't mess it up, Prissy," she said again, softer this time. "Some people would kill for the life you're about to have. It was meant as a joke, I think. Our wedding was small but stunning, a glass chapel overlooking the Pacific. My veil fluttered in the ocean wind like something alive. When I walked down the aisle, Derek's eyes were already glistening. "You're safe with me," he whispered as he slipped the ring onto my finger. For a brief, fragile moment, I believed him. Vanessa's toast later that evening was perfect, heartfelt, witty, sentimental. To my sister, she said, raising her champagne flute, "The woman who taught me that love isn't just found, it's built. One brave line of code at a time." People laughed and applauded. But when she hugged me, her lips brushed my ear, and she whispered something else, something that no one else could hear. "Don't forget Prissy," she murmured. "Every system has a flaw." Our honeymoon was a blur of glass hotels and ocean sunsets. Derek was attentive, passionate, endlessly patient. He made me believe that maybe I could balance work and love. Maybe the girl who coded emotions could finally feel them without fear. But then small shifts began to appear. At dinners, he'd talk about our company slipping ownership into plural pronouns. At parties, he'd steer conversations about neurosync toward himself, laughing modestly when people praised his strategic vision. When I mentioned it, he'd just smile. "You're too sensitive about credit, love. It's us against the world." For someone who built machines to detect emotion, I should have noticed the warning signs sooner. 6 months after our wedding, Tech Global made their offer. $1 billion. Derek handled the celebration arrangements before I could even process the number. He booked a private event at our home called The Board, invited Vanessa. "You've earned this," he told me, pouring champagne into crystal flutes. "You can finally breathe." Vanessa arrived in a silver dress that caught the light like a blade. She threw her arms around me, laughing. "To my sister, the billionaire." We toasted clinking glasses. That's when I saw it again, the look. Quick, wordless, electric. Derek's eyes flicking toward Vanessa, hers returning the glance in perfect synchrony. Not flirtatious, something quieter. Complicit. A message passed between them faster than any algorithm could decode. And in that moment, though, the room sparkled with congratulations. A faint dread slid under my skin like cold water. I didn't know why. Not yet. But I felt it, the invisible shift in gravity, the sense that the empire I had built had just tilted on its axis. I smiled for the cameras. I laughed at Vanessa's jokes. I kissed my husband. And somewhere deep down, a voice I had ignored for years whispered, "You should start saving yourself." People always imagine betrayal as a single dramatic moment, a knife glinting in the dark, a sudden gasp of realization. But the truth is quieter. It seeps in like humidity, invisible but suffocating, until everything feels damp with unease. After the billion-dollar deal, my days blurred into interviews, corporate dinners, and endless press photos. The visionary founder of neurosync. I smiled for headlines while my personal life decayed in silence. Derek had changed. At first I couldn't name it, the subtle impatience when I spoke the way he kept his phone angled away from me. He was still charming, still the husband everyone envied, but behind closed doors there was distance. Our marriage became a performance, and I was the last to realize I was acting in a play written by someone else. One night I woke at 2 a.m. to the faint blue light of his phone screen. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, scrolling his jaw tight. "Can't sleep," I murmured. He jumped slightly, then smiled too quickly. "Work stuff. Go back to bed." But I caught a glimpse before he turned the phone off an email subject line that read, "Transfer authorization form." When I asked about it in the morning, he laughed. "Routine. Wealth management. Don't start thinking I'm hiding gold bars in the garden." I forced a laugh, the kind that ends too soon. Around that time, Vanessa called. "Prissy, I need to crash at your place for a few weeks. LA is killing me. My agency dropped half its models, rent's overdue, and I just need family." "Of course," I said. I remembered all those nights in college when she called me crying over bills. Back then, I'd always sent what little I had. She was my sister, my only sister. She arrived with 5 suitcases and perfume, strong enough to fill the foyer. "I forgot how gorgeous this place is," she said, walking barefoot across marble floors as though she already owned them. Derek came down the stairs to greet her. His smile was genuine, too genuine. Vanessa still stunning as ever. "And you," she said, her eyes scanning him like she was taking measurements. "No wonder my sister glows these days." They hugged. Too long. I told myself I was imagining it. Weeks turned into months. At first, it was convenient. Vanessa helped with events, offered to coordinate decorators, even suggested ideas for my charity work. She made herself useful, indispensable even. But then there were moments that didn't fit. I'd come home early from meetings to find them laughing over wine, their heads close, or I'd walk into the kitchen and the conversation would cut off mid-sentence. Once I found one of Derek's ties draped over the back of Vanessa's chair. She smiled when she saw my eyes linger. "Relax, Prissy. He just spilled wine and I helped clean it. You're not jealous of your own husband, are you?" I wasn't, not yet, just uneasy. A week later, I hosted a dinner for potential investors. I was in the middle of a story when I noticed Derek leaning close to Vanessa, whispering. She laughed softly, brushing his arm. When she looked up, our eyes met, and for the briefest second, I saw triumph. That night, as we cleaned up, I asked Derek quietly, "Do you and Vanessa talk about me when I'm not around?" He chuckled. "Of course we do. You're the most interesting subject we've got." I smiled, pretending the joke didn't sting. But in the mirror that night, brushing my hair, I caught myself whispering, "They wouldn't. They couldn't." Still a voice in my head, that same quiet instinct that once told me how to build an algorithm from chaos, whispered, "You're being studied." The changes accelerated. Derek's trips became longer. Investor meetings in New York. Client retreats in Dubai. His texts grew curt, his calls irregular. When I asked if everything was okay, he'd sigh. "We can't live on romance forever, Margaret. We're adults." I didn't argue. I just watched him disappear, one message at a time. Meanwhile, Vanessa thrived in my house. Her clothes occupied an entire closet. She hosted friends in my living room, flirted with staff, and filled the air with laughter that no longer sounded like family. One evening, I passed the guest room and heard her on the phone. "No, I'm not worried. She never looks past what's in front of her. That's her weakness." The line went dead when she noticed me in the doorway. "Who were you talking to?" I asked. "Just an old friend." "You startled me," she said, her voice a little too light, but the tremor in her hand betrayed her. The following morning, Derek left early. I waited until he was gone, then went into his office, a space I rarely entered. His laptop was open, a spreadsheet minimized at the corner of the screen. My curiosity got the better of me. At first, it looked like financial data, our accounts, investment distributions. Then my eyes froze on a label, contingency fund, offshore holdings. Underneath a beneficiary name, Vanessa Cooper. I sat back, pulse hammering. There had to be a rational explanation. Estate planning, tax reasons, anything. When Derek returned that night, I tried to sound casual. I saw the offshore files. "You named Vanessa as a beneficiary." He didn't flinch, just smiled, pouring himself a drink. "Smart, isn't it? If something happens to both of us, your sister ensures your legacy stays in family hands. In case something happens, it's standard risk management." He leaned in, brushed my cheek, and whispered, "Don't overthink it. You trust me, don't you?" I nodded, but that word trust felt foreign, now hollow like an empty shell. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept hearing Vanessa's laughter echo through the halls. I got up and wandered into the hallway, stopping outside Derek's study. Voices murmured behind the door, low, intimate, conspiratorial. I pressed my ear to the wood. "Can't rush this," Derek said. "Timing has to be perfect." Vanessa's voice followed, softer but firm. "She won't suspect a thing. She never does." A pause, then the sound of glasses clinking. I stepped back before they could notice the shadow under the door. By dawn, I had made up my mind. If my gut was wrong, I'd look paranoid. But if it was right, then my life was in danger. I called Martin Reeves, a former security chief who'd once handled executive protection for NeuroSync. "I need you to run background checks," I told him quietly, "on my husband and my sister." Discreetly. There was a pause on the line. "That's quite a combination, Mrs. Hamilton." "Just do it." For the next few days, I pretended everything was normal brunch, with Vanessa conference calls, with Derek's team charity meetings. But I started noticing more details: Vanessa's new diamond bracelet, the way Derek's phone lit up with her name late at night, his sudden interest in yacht listings. 3 days later, Martin called. "Mrs. Hamilton," he said, his tone grave. "I found things you should see." He sent a file. Derek's gambling debts, bank loans cleared right after our wedding, and Vanessa's recent deposits into an offshore account, over $100,000 in unexplained cash. My heart felt like it was being pulled through glass. The sister I'd rescued countless times was stealing from me, and the man who said I was safe with him had been gambling on my life. That night, I sat alone in my office, staring at the city lights. I remembered Vanessa's old line from the wedding. "Every system has a flaw." I finally understood what she meant. And the flaw, the one she and Derek had been patiently studying for years, was me. Betrayal doesn't break you all at once. It starts by teaching you to smile through panic, to sit at a breakfast table across from the people planning your death and pretend everything is fine. 3 days after Martin's call, I was still pretending. Derek sat across from me in our glass-walled kitchen, his shirt perfectly pressed, his voice casual as he read stock updates on his tablet. I stirred my coffee, watching the dark swirl fade into cream. "Everything okay with our finances?" I asked lightly. "You've been checking accounts a lot lately." He didn't look up. "Just long-term planning, love. With the tech global deal, we have to manage our assets properly. Diversify. You know this stuff bores you." He smiled as if that smile could erase the unease crawling under my skin. The way he said "trust me now" felt like an insult. I nodded. "Right. You're good at that kind of thing." He reached across the table, covering my hand with his. Warm, confident, rehearsed. "You don't need to worry about anything. You've done enough." And for the first time, the words didn't sound like comfort. They sounded like an ending. That afternoon, I went into our private office, the one room in the mansion that Derek never entered, because I'd once told him it was my sanctuary for focus. There, I opened my laptop and watched the video feed from the new cameras I'd installed 2 nights earlier, under the guise of a security upgrade. At first, there was nothing unusual. Derek worked at his desk. Vanessa sunbathed by the pool, oblivious to the tiny lens tucked inside a decorative vase. But on the third evening, the cameras caught them in Derek's study. Vanessa stood beside him, flipping through documents. I turned the volume up, my pulse thudding in my ears. "Once it's done, how soon can we access the funds?" Vanessa asked. Immediately, Derek replied, tapping a page. "Her succession plan transfers control upon death. She changed her will after the acquisition. You're her sole heir, since we don't have kids." Vanessa's laugh was quiet, sharp. "Convenient." He leaned closer. "It'll look like an accident. No trace. The yacht trip is our opportunity." The blood drained from my face. The yacht. He'd been researching boats for weeks. Then Vanessa said it so softly I almost didn't hear, "and they'll never find the body in open water." My hand flew to my mouth. I could taste metal. Derek nodded. "Perfect accident." I stopped the recording and sat perfectly still. Silence pressed down like water. My own heartbeat sounded like footsteps approaching. Then slowly, something inside me shifted from fear to precision. The same calm focus that once helped me debug code now rearranged itself for survival. I backed up the footage on 2 encrypted drives. One I hid inside a hollow book in my office, the other in the lining of a jacket I would take with me everywhere. Then I called Jane, my assistant, the only person who'd never failed me. "Jane, I need you to do something," I said, voice steady despite the tremor underneath. "I'm giving you an envelope. If you don't hear from me for 3 days, open it and call the numbers inside. Don't ask why." "Margaret, what's going on?" "I just need you to trust me," I said. And I meant it. The irony wasn't lost on me. Over the next few days, I prepared. I didn't run. I didn't confront them. Instead, I began constructing a plan that would make even their betrayal part of my design. I activated the location tracking on my smartwatch and laptop, connected them to a hidden emergency email. If I didn't log in within 48 hours, automated messages would send to Jane Martin and my lawyer. I transferred $10 million into a new offshore account under a false name, money only I could access. And I packed a small waterproof pouch with a GPS beacon, emergency cache, and a compact satellite phone. I tested every piece of it twice. The engineer in me had returned. Only this time the prototype was survival. On the 5th morning, Derek came to me with a grin. "I booked us a trip. A second honeymoon. You've been so tense lately, you need to unwind." "Oh," I asked, keeping my tone light. "Where to?" "The Mexican Riviera. Just the 2 of us," he said, and then, as if rehearsed, Vanessa appeared in the doorway. "Well," Derek added smoothly, 3 of us. "I thought it'd be fun to bring your sister along. You 2 deserve some time together." Vanessa's eyes flicked toward me. She was almost daring me to object. I smiled so sweetly it surprised even me. "That sounds perfect." Her eyebrows lifted, a flicker of confusion breaking her poise. She hadn't expected agreement. "Great," Derek said, relief evident. "We leave Friday." That night I stood at the window overlooking the dark ocean. Its surface was calm, reflecting the moon like a mirror that could shatter with a single touch. I whispered to my reflection, "If they want a performance, I'll give them one." Then I pulled the small waterproof pouch from my drawer and tested the GPS beacon again, watching the tiny red light blink like a heartbeat. The next morning, Vanessa entered my room uninvited. She perched on the edge of the bed, dressed in silk, and feigned sisterly concern. "You okay?" "You've been quiet." I looked at her, at the familiar face that mirrored my own. Just softer, more open, more dangerous. "Just tired," I said. She tilted her head. "You trust Eric, right?" The question was too casual, too deliberate. Of course, I said, smiling thinly. Why wouldn't I? She shrugged, playing innocent. Good. Because love can make people see things that aren't there. I held her gaze, letting the silence stretch until she fidgeted. You're right, I finally said. Love blinds us, but it also makes us sharper once we start to see. She frowned, unsure how to respond, then stood and left the room. The door clicked shut, a soft, final sound. Later that evening, I opened my laptop and reviewed the footage one last time, their words, their plan, their voices. Vanessa's tone so calm it broke something inside me. Derek's certainty, his smooth confidence as he discussed my death like a logistics problem. I didn't cry. Not yet. The tears would come later when I was safe. For now, all I felt was the cold efficiency of a woman who had built empires out of zeros and ones, and who was about to turn betrayal into data love, into leverage, and fear into strategy. When Derek came to bed that night, he wrapped his arm around me and kissed my temple. You'll love the yacht, he whispered. Open ocean, no interruptions, just us. My throat tightened, but my voice didn't shake. That sounds wonderful. He smiled, already asleep within minutes. I lay awake beside him, counting the seconds between his breaths, memorizing the sound of the man who had promised forever and planned an ending instead. 6 days. That's how long I had before my own husband and my sister tried to erase me. 6 days to prepare for a murder that would never go as planned. The azure dream shimmered like a floating palace, all white decks and polished chrome cutting through the blue Pacific as if the ocean itself were bowing to it. Under any other circumstances, it would have been paradise. But to me, it was a coffin dressed in sunlight. The first 3 days were almost idyllic, almost. Vanessa sprawled on the deck in designer swimwear, laughing too loudly. Derek was attentive, affectionate, but his eyes kept flicking to the horizon whenever I caught them. He thought I didn't notice. I played the role of the unsuspecting wife perfectly, the soft smiles, the gentle humor, the trust he expected. Beneath it, every nerve in my body hummed with calculation. I noted every exit, every railing, the lifeboat mechanisms, even the pattern of the waves when the captain cut the engines. The engineer in me was still working not with code this time, but survival equations. On the 4th morning, Captain Rodriguez mentioned we'd reached open waters 100 miles off the Mexican coast, Señora. 100 miles from anyone who could hear me scream. I smiled politely and thanked him. That night, Vanessa suggested something that made my stomach twist. Let the crew rest, Prissy. They've worked hard. We can serve ourselves dinner for once. We'll manage, right, Derek? He glanced at her, then at me. Sure, they deserve a break. Her smile was a little too bright. Perfect. They cooked together, pasta, wine, candlelight. Vanessa hummed some romantic song while Derek poured me a drink. Special recipe, he said, handing me a bright pink cocktail. Extra strong, just the way you like it. I accepted the glass, swirling the ice so he wouldn't see the reflection of my eyes. Calm, deliberate. Already decided. When he turned away, I tilted my wrist slightly and let most of the drink slide down the side of the glass, disappearing between my fingers. The sticky sweetness clung to my skin. I took a fake sip. Delicious, I murmured. Vanessa raised her glass. To family. I forced a smile. To loyalty. The silence that followed lasted a second too long. An hour later, I began my act. My movements slowed, my voice slurred slightly. I think I need to lie down, I said, swaying. Derek was at my side instantly. Let me help you, sweetheart. His tone dripped with concern, but his fingers dug into my arm like iron. He half carried me to our cabin and laid me on the bed. I kept my eyes half open, my breathing shallow. He bent over me, waving his hand in front of my face, checking for reaction. Satisfied, he turned and locked the door behind him. Through the thin cabin walls, I could hear their muffled voices. Is she out? Vanessa whispered. Completely, Derek replied. The sedative's strong. We'll move her soon. I waited 15 minutes before I moved. Slow, quiet, precise. I reached for the waterproof pouch hidden under the bed, GPS beacon, cache, satellite phone. My hands were steady. My heartbeat wasn't. I changed into dark athletic clothes and soft-soled shoes. I tied my hair back, took one slow breath, and pressed my ear to the door. Their footsteps approached. Derek's low voice. Vanessa's nervous laugh. Time to move her, he said. She won't wake up. She couldn't if she tried. I slipped behind the cabin door as the lock turned. They entered whispering. The smell of Derek's cologne mixed with sea salt made my stomach twist. They stepped closer to the bed to where my empty silhouette lay under the blanket I'd stuffed with a robe. Then I moved, looking for something. My voice cut through the dark like a blade. They spun around. Vanessa gasped. Derek froze, his expression shifting from surprise to calculation in half a second. Margaret, he said smoothly, you're awake. Thank God. You seemed... Don't, I said. My voice was steel. I know everything. Vanessa's face hardened. The mask dropped. You shouldn't have heard that, she said softly. It would have been easier. Easier for you, after you threw me to the sharks. Her lips curled into something cold. You think you can have everything forever, don't you? You were born lucky brains, money, all of it handed to you. Maybe the universe just decided to balance things out. My eyes stung, but I refused to cry. I worked for everything I have, Vanessa, and I still would have shared it with you. Shared, she snapped. You never shared. You donated, like a queen dropping crumbs. Derek stepped forward, his hand tightening around something a wrench from the maintenance shelf. This conversation's over, he said. No one will believe you anyway. Funny, I said. You said that about your last 2 girlfriends, didn't you? Before they accidentally died. For the first time, he blinked, thrown off balance. Vanessa's head whipped toward him. What? I smiled faintly. Oh, he didn't tell you that part? You should have done more research before joining his side. That second of confusion was all I needed. I darted toward the door, shoving past Vanessa. Stop her! Derek roared. I ran down the corridor, bare feet slapping against the metal floor. My lungs burned, but adrenaline drowned the pain. I reached the deck, the night wind slashing my face like knives. Help! I screamed toward the crew quarters. Help me! But the engines were roaring. Music from the galley drowned my voice. The crew was below deck, oblivious. Derek's footsteps thundered behind me. You're only making this worse. He lunged, grabbing a fistful of my hair. Pain exploded through my scalp as he yanked me back. I twisted, elbowed him hard in the ribs. He grunted, staggering. Vanessa joined the struggle, clawing at my wrists. Hold her, Derek barked. I kicked, struck, clawed, animal instincts taking over. My hand found a wine bottle from their dinner setup. I smashed it against the railing glass, scattering like stars. Stay back, I warned. Vanessa hesitated, breathing hard. For a moment, her eyes flickered something almost human. Vanessa, I whispered. We're sisters. You don't have to do this. Her jaw trembled. Then her expression hardened again. Say hello to the sharks for me, Prissy. And with both hands, she shoved me. The fall was fast, the world tilting stars spinning. The surface hit like concrete. The breath was torn from my lungs. The ocean swallowed my scream. When I broke through again, gasping, the yacht was already turning. The sound of the engines drowned out everything else. I saw them standing at the railing, Derek's arm around Vanessa's shoulders, their silhouettes sharp against the light. He smiled. She didn't. Then they turned away. Cold shock wrapped around me like chains. The salt stung my eyes, my throat. The instinct to panic roared, but I forced it down. I remembered every word from the survival course years ago, float first. Think second. I rolled onto my back, lungs heaving, the night sky above me glittering with stars that felt 1,000 years away. Somewhere in the distance, the azure dream shrank, her lights fading until the sea consumed them. They thought they'd killed me. But I wasn't dead. Not yet. I reached under my shirt, fumbling for the waterproof pouch. The beacon blinked to life, one tiny pulse of red against the endless black. I whispered to the dark voice, trembling but fierce. You wanted a ghost, Derek. You've got one now. Then I began to swim. The ocean has no mercy. It doesn't care who you are, what you've built, or how many zeros sit in your bank account. It only asks one question. Can you endure me? That night, I learned how small $1 billion looks when you're alone in the middle of the Pacific with nothing but black water beneath your feet. The first shock was the cold. The second was silence. Every sound, the roar of the yacht. Vanessa's final whisper, Derek's smug breathing, vanished. There was only the slap of waves against my body and the frantic rhythm of my heartbeat. I kicked hard, forcing my muscles to move through the ache. Salt water burned my eyes, my throat. I floated on my back, gasping at the stars. Each breath was a negotiation with the sea. Give me one more. Just one. Then I remembered the training. Float first. Think second. I slowed my breathing, rolled carefully to conserve heat, and scanned the horizon. Nothing but darkness. No shore. No boat. Just the endless black mirror of water. Fear is a living thing in the ocean. It crawls into your ears and whispers that no one's coming, that the sharks below already know your heartbeat. But I refused to die quietly. I found the pouch under my shirt and switched on the GPS beacon. A faint red light blinked proof of life. I had no idea if anyone would pick it up, but that pulse felt like hope. I remembered Derek's voice. No one will find the body. He underestimated how stubborn I could be. I'd once stayed awake for 52 hours debugging a single corrupted algorithm. If I could fight a machine, I could fight this. So I swam. The hours blurred, my limbs went numb. My mind drifted in and out of focus. At times I imagined Vanessa's face above me, leaning over the railing, whispering, "You should have shared." I whispered back I did. My mistake. Once I saw the faint outline of a fin slicing through the surface, smooth, deliberate. My breath hitched, but I forced myself still. Sharks are drawn to panic. I wasn't giving them that satisfaction. I thought about Mrs. Harlow, my first computer science teacher, her calm voice saying, "Your mind works differently, Margaret. Use it." So I calculated water temperature around 60 degrees time to hypothermia, about 8 hours, depending on body fat and movement. I could survive if I didn't give up. Sometime around dawn, the horizon began to gray. I had survived the night. Barely. But survival had its own price. My lips were split from salt, my fingers white, and shriveled muscles trembling uncontrollably. The sun rose beautiful, pitiless. Warmth came, but so did thirst. By mid-morning, my tongue felt like sandpaper. The salt crusted in my hair, my clothes heavy with brine. I could no longer feel my legs, just the dull rhythm of kicking. Then a shape. At first I thought it was another hallucination. But no, it was real, a small floating object bobbing in the distance. I swam toward it with everything I had left. It was a yacht cushion, cream-colored, embroidered with the words, "Azure Dream." The irony made me laugh, a dry, broken sound that turned into a cough. Still, it was buoyant enough to support me. I clung to it, pressing my cheek to its surface. For a while, I just floated a dead woman, keeping herself alive with the wreckage of her murder weapon. The day crawled by. Time stopped being linear. I drifted between memories. Vanessa at 16 crying after her first breakup. Me staying up all night coding while she slept in my dorm bed because she didn't want to be alone. Derek brushing a strand of hair from my face and saying, "You can trust me, Margaret. I'd never hurt you." I laughed again, hoarse, bitter. Never, I whispered to the waves. By afternoon, the sun was merciless. Dehydration clawed at my consciousness. Every swallow of seawater I resisted felt like a victory and a punishment all at once. At some point, I began talking to myself out loud. "You've survived worse," I told the horizon. "Midterms, rejections, failure. This is just another project. Solve it." And that's when I heard it, a distant hum. Faint, almost imaginary, but real. A motor. I forced my head up, squinting against the glare. There, a small fishing boat maybe half a mile away. My pulse exploded in my ears. I waved the cushion, screaming until my voice shredded. They didn't see me. The boat kept moving steady and indifferent. Desperation clawed at me. I switched the GPS beacon to strobe mode, the faint red light flickering like Morse code against the sea. "Please," I whispered. "Please see me." For a long moment, nothing changed. Then a shift. The boat slowed, turned. They had seen me. By the time they reached me, I was half-conscious. 2 men, one older, one young, hauled me aboard, their voices a blur of Spanish and disbelief. "Dios mío, una mujer aquí. Careful, she's freezing." Rough hands wrapped me in a blanket. Someone pressed a bottle of water to my lips. I coughed, choking the taste of life flooding back into me. The older man crouched beside me, his lined face kind but cautious. "Señora, what happened?" "Where is your boat?" I managed one word. "Gone." They exchanged looks. The younger one, Marco, murmured, "No boats have passed here for 2 days." I closed my eyes. Then I'm lucky. The older man nodded. "I am Captain Luis Rivera. You are safe now." Safe. The word tasted strange, like something I no longer believed in. They carried me below deck, wrapping me in blankets, spooning water into my mouth until I could speak again. As warmth returned, so did clarity and danger. I couldn't tell them everything. Not yet. If Derek and Vanessa realized I was alive, they'd finish what they started. "Accident," I whispered. "Fell overboard. Yacht." Captain Rivera frowned. "You alone?" I shook my head. "Husband. Sister. They think I drowned." The captain's expression hardened. "That is not accident, señora." "No," I said quietly. "It isn't." Hours later, as the boat rocked toward the distant coast, I sat wrapped in a blanket, watching the ocean that had almost claimed me. Derek's face flashed in my mind, his practiced charm, his steady hand pouring poison into my glass. Vanessa's whisper, "Say hello to the sharks." I traced the scar on my palm from where I'd gripped the broken bottle. The salt water had burned it raw, but the pain kept me awake, kept me alive. Captain Rivera approached. We reach shore by morning. There will be police. No, I cut in. Please, I need to handle this myself. He hesitated, but I'll make it worth your while. I met his eyes. And safer for you. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. You pay, I forget. We help you quietly. That night, I finally let myself cry. Not from fear, but fury, pure volcanic cleansing. My tears hit the wooden floor and disappeared instantly like they'd been swallowed by the same sea that failed to kill me. I wasn't the same woman who'd boarded that yacht. The naive genius who trusted love more than logic was gone. In her place was someone sharper, colder, a woman who had already died once and learned she could rise again. As the fishing boat cut through the waves toward the coast, I whispered a vow to the dark horizon. You took everything from me, Derek. You, Vanessa. But the ocean gave me back something better purpose. And for the first time since that night began, I smiled. When the morning light docked at a small fishing village on the Mexican coast, the world believed I was dead. And for the first time in my life, that was an advantage. Captain Rivera kept his word. No questions, no authorities, just a curt nod and a quiet exchange, cash for silence. His son Marco carried my meager belongings ashore. Gracias, I whispered. Rivera studied me with wary respect. You are strong, senora, but strong people still need plans. I already have one, I said, though. At that moment, my plan was only a shape made of fury and instinct. He gave a single nod. Then God help the people who crossed you. I checked into a tiny hotel by the docks, paying in cash. The room smelled of salt and old paint. I didn't care. I showered for the first time in days, watching the seawater, my own near-death, swirl down the drain. Then I opened my laptop, using the hotel's slow, flickering Wi-Fi. Jane's reply was waiting. From Jane H., subject, oh my God, you're alive. Her message trembled with relief and fear. Margaret, I opened your envelope after you went missing. The police have declared you presumed dead. Derek and Vanessa held a press conference yesterday. They're playing the grieving family. What do you want me to do? I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. Then I typed back slowly, do nothing yet. I'll tell you when to start the game. Over the next week, I built my new identity. With Olivia Chen's help, a cybersecurity prodigy I once mentored, I became Patricia Lane, a quiet American entrepreneur who'd retired early to Mexico. Olivia handled the digital side passport ID bank accounts. Jane transferred funds into my hidden account, and soon Patricia Lane had enough capital to disappear or destroy whichever came first. But I didn't want escape. I wanted precision, justice. 3 weeks later, my war room was complete, a modest beachfront hotel room turned command center. On my screen, my allies appeared one by one: Jane Olivia, Theodore Cooper, my lawyer, and Martin Reeves, the private investigator who'd first uncovered Derek's debts. Jane's voice cracked with emotion. I can't believe you're actually alive, I finished. That's the problem, Jane. They can't believe it either. And that's why I'll win. Theodore adjusted his glasses, always the pragmatist. What's your objective, Margaret? Revenge or justice? I thought about it. The difference felt thinner than paper. Justice, I said finally. But I'll accept revenge as a side effect. We began by tracking Derek and Vanessa's movements. Martin shared his findings. They're spending like royalty. New cars, jewelry, and Aspen property already under renovation. They've filed paperwork to consolidate your business assets under Derek's name. And get this, he's researching countries without extradition treaties. Meaning he's planning an exit, I muttered. Olivia chimed in. I've hacked into his emails and Vanessa's social accounts. There's enough here to build a digital map of their greed. Deleted messages, encrypted chats. He's been planning this since before your wedding. Her screen shared a recovered text thread. Derek engagement is set. She said yes. Vanessa. Of course she did. My sister always wants what she can't have. Derek. Be nice. She's our ticket out of debt. Vanessa. How long do we wait, Derek? Until the company sells. Then, an accident. Vanessa. I can be patient for 1 billion reasons. Jane gasped. They were plotting this for over a year. The room fell silent, digital silence, but heavy all the same. I leaned back, breathing deeply. Rage and grief twisted together in my chest. They thought they built a perfect crime, I said finally. But they built it in front of a woman who designed systems for detecting human behavior. Theodore nodded. Then we'll use their own patterns against them. We outlined 3 goals: proof of intent, digital communication, and financial fraud. Proof of action video from the yacht's hidden cameras. Proof of aftermath, their exploitation of my estate after my death. I already had most of it. We just needed to tie the threads neatly enough for law enforcement and messily enough to ruin them publicly. While Olivia traced their encrypted accounts, Martin went analog tailing Derek and Vanessa's every move. He sent photos daily, the two of them at a jewelry store, at a luxury spa, laughing poolside with cocktails that looked a lot like the one Derek once handed me. Every image hurt, not because I missed them, but because I remembered believing them. Olivia's voice broke my thoughts one evening. Margaret, there's more. She shared a set of files, offshore transfers in Vanessa's name. She's moved $2 million already, probably prepping to disappear once Derek's usefulness runs out. So she'll betray him too, I said. Some habits don't die. Jane looked pained. What are you going to do? I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Exactly what they planned for me. I'll make them think the ghost they buried came back to haunt them. Phase 1 was psychological. Jane mailed an anonymous note to their mansion. Just a single line, "The ocean remembers." A week later, Olivia hacked Derek's smart home system, making the hallway lights flicker at 300 a.m., while his security cameras replayed looping footage of ocean waves. Within days, he contacted a private priest, something about spiritual cleansing. Vanessa booked an emergency therapy session. Martin reported that Vanessa had begun sleeping with her lights on. Perfect. Phase 2 was tactical. With Theodore's connections, we built a legal foundation strong enough for arrest warrants, but quiet enough not to alert them. We also installed new surveillance inside the mansion under the guise of a renovation. Jane arranged the contractors, feeding them a cover story, a surprise gift for the homeowners. Hidden microphones, discreet cameras, remote locks. Derek and Vanessa would return home soon from their European morning trip. When they did, the house wouldn't belong to them anymore. It would belong to me and to justice. The night before their flight, I stood on the balcony of my rented apartment staring at the moonlit sea. The same sea that had nearly devoured me now shimmered with possibility. I thought of Vanessa's last words, "Say hello to the sharks." I smiled faintly. I did, I whispered. They said they prefer other predators. When my team logged on for one final briefing, I was ready. Everything's in place, Martin said. The warrants are pre-approved. Theodore confirmed. The house systems are synced to your control app, Olivia added. Jane's eyes were wet. Are you sure you want to be there in person? I have to be, I said. They need to see me before the world does. They need to understand who they tried to erase. Silence. Then Theodore nodded solemnly. Then Godspeed, Ms. Cooper. I closed my laptop, packed my ID, and looked once more in the mirror. The reflection staring back wasn't the woman who'd built an empire or fallen in love. She was leaner, harder, deliberate. Patricia Lane vanished that night. And Margaret Cooper, the ghost, the survivor, the reckoning came home. By midnight, I was inside the mansion. My mansion. I entered through the side door Derek had never bothered to secure past the biometric panel he thought only he could control. The house smelled of new money and decay, Vanessa's perfume mixed with Derek's cologne. On the dining table, I placed a single box wrapped in silver paper. Inside, everything they had used to destroy me, the recordings, the emails, the documents. My gift. Then I sat in the dark waiting. The clock ticked past 12. Their car headlights appeared in the driveway. They were home. And this time I was ready. The front gate opened with a hum, headlights sweeping across the marble drive like searchlights. Derek's laughter carried faintly through the night, careless, confident, the sound of a man who believed the world still obeyed him. Not for long. I watched through the security feed on my tablet as they stumbled into the foyer, champagne drunk and oblivious. Vanessa's heels clicked against the marble. Derek tossed his keys onto the console table, murmuring something about finally being home. Then they froze. Every light in the mansion was on. Music drifted from the dining room, soft jazz, one of Derek's favorite albums. Did you leave this playing? Vanessa whispered. Derek's smile faltered. No, stay here. He stepped forward cautiously, the bravado draining from his movements. She followed anyway, clutching his arm as they crossed the hall. When they entered the dining room, I saw the exact moment their composure cracked. The table was set for 3 polished silverware candles burning low, wine glasses half filled. At the center sat the gift box, wrapped in silver. Vanessa's voice trembled. What the hell is this? I stepped out from the shadows of the adjoining room. Dinner, I said. You're late. The air left the room. Derek went pale, stumbling back as if I were an apparition. No, you're dead, I finished. That's what you told everyone. Vanessa let out a choked sound, part scream, part sob. This isn't possible. I walked closer, calm and steady. You were right about one thing, Vanessa. The ocean does keep secrets. It just didn't keep mine. She shook her head, tears streaking her face. We thought, I cut her off. Don't lie to me. You didn't think. You planned. Derek tried to recover his mind, calculating escape routes. Margaret, please. Listen. There was a misunderstanding. You fell overboard. Stop, I said sharply. Don't insult me with another performance. I designed technology that reads micro-expressions. Remember, I can tell when someone's lying before they even speak. He went silent. Vanessa backed toward the doorway, but the click of the electronic lock froze her in place. She turned toward me, eyes wide. What did you do? I tilted my head. Just making sure no one runs before dessert. Open it, I said, nodding to the silver box. Derek hesitated, then peeled back the paper. The lid came off with a soft rustle. Inside lay the items of their undoing. A waterproof camera, a flash drive, a thick stack of documents, and on top 2 sealed envelopes with their names written neatly in my handwriting. Derek's fingers trembled as he lifted the camera. The screen flickered to life, replaying a grainy recording of him and Vanessa's in the yacht's study. Vanessa, and they'll never find the body in open water. Derek, perfect accident. His face collapsed. Vanessa whimpered, backing away as if she could unhear herself. Next, he opened the flash drive on his laptop, recovered emails, text messages, all their digital signatures, their own words detailing months of conspiracy. Finally, he unfolded the documents' arrest warrants bearing both their names already stamped and signed. Vanessa's knees gave out. No, you can't. Oh, I can, I said softly. You taught me how. The sirens began faintly in the distance, not loud yet, but close enough for Derek to recognize the sound. His head snapped up, panic overtaking composure. You called the police. I didn't need to, I replied. They've been waiting for this. I just gave them your RSVP. He lunged suddenly, fury overriding reason, grabbing a knife from the table. You think this ends with you winning, he hissed. If I'm going down, I'm taking you with me. I didn't move. You already did. Before he reached me, the hidden door beside the dining room burst open. Martin and 2 of my hired security specialists tackled him to the ground. The knife clattered across the floor. Vanessa screamed, curling into a corner. The front doors unlocked automatically as uniformed officers stormed in, weapons-drawn voices echoing through the halls. Hands where we can see them. Derek thrashed, cursing, shouting that I was insane, that it was all a setup. Vanessa sobbed, pleading. It was his idea. He made me do it. But their voices blurred into background noise. I stood still, letting the chaos unfold around me, detached. When the police led them away in handcuffs, Derek turned one last time, his eyes burning with hatred. You'll regret this, Margaret. You'll always be alone. I met his gaze calmly. Better alone than buried. Vanessa followed her tears, streaking her mascara. Prissy, please. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. You meant every word I said. Even the last one you said before you pushed me. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. The officers guided her out. The front doors shut behind them with a definitive click, the same sound I'd heard the night of my fall. Only this time I was on the right side of it. When the house fell silent again, I sank into a chair. My hands trembled for the first time in months. Martin approached carefully. You okay, boss? I let out a long, shuddering breath. Ask me tomorrow. He nodded, understanding. They'll be held without bail. Theodore's already arranging your statement. Good, I said. Let's make sure the world knows what they did not, what they pretended to be. The next morning, the story exploded. Tech heiress found alive. Husband and sister charged with attempted murder. The media feasted. Cameras swarmed the courthouse. Hashtags trended. Hashtag back from the dead. Hashtag billion-dollar betrayal. I gave one interview, just one. They thought they buried me, I told the journalist. But all they did was water the ground I was meant to grow from. The trial was merciless. The evidence was overwhelming recordings, bank transfers, deleted messages, the yacht's GPS data. Derek's mask cracked on the stand. Vanessa wept through every testimony, eventually turning on him to save herself. It didn't work. He got 30 years without parole. She got 18. Justice wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Months later, standing in my new apartment overlooking the bay, I watched the sun bleed into the water, the same ocean that had tried to erase me. Jane came over with coffee. It's strange, she said quietly. After everything, you don't seem angry anymore. I smiled faintly. Anger's heavy. I carried it long enough. She nodded. What now? I rebuild, I said, but differently this time. And I did. With Theodore's help, I founded the Phoenix Trust, a foundation supporting victims of financial and emotional manipulation. Women who, like me, had loved the wrong people and nearly paid with their lives. It gave my pain purpose. When the press asked why Phoenix, I told them, because rising from ashes isn't a miracle, it's a choice. A year after the sentencing, I chartered a small boat and returned to the coordinates where I'd fallen. Jane came with me, silent beside me as I scattered white roses across the surface. Each flower represented something lost: trust, innocence, illusion, and something gained: survival, truth, clarity. The woman who fell here died that night, I said softly. The one who swam away. She's still learning how to live. The wind caught my hair, carrying the scent of salt and freedom. Jane smiled. So, what now, Margaret? I looked out at the horizon, where sky and sea met in infinite reflection. Now I said I start over, not from nothing, but from everything I've survived. Later that evening, back on shore, I checked my phone. A message from Captain Rivera blinked on the screen. Saw the news. You did it. The ocean didn't take you because it knew you weren't finished. I smiled through the tears that came unexpectedly. He was right. I wasn't finished. I never would be. Because when you've already faced the depths, there's nothing left to fear from the surface. And the next time someone tried to drown me, metaphorically, or otherwise, they'd learn the same lesson Derek and Vanessa did. Some ghosts don't haunt you. They hunt you.